This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jespersen.
Grateful to have you here on this episode of the show. You know, as we observe Pride Month, two LGBTQI plus business leaders and entrepreneurs are gathering from across the country in the Big Smoke in Toronto for the 2S LGBTQI plus Global Business Summit. And on this episode, we present a special edition of the Real Talk Roundtable. We're going to endeavor to better understand the challenges of doing business in Canada as a member of that community, maybe some of the areas of growth, the focus areas of pride, how the business landscape is changing, and maybe even why is there a need for a Canadian 2S LGBTQI plus Chamber of Commerce? Did you know it exists? We're going to learn about it today. You can check it out online. You and I were talking to organizers behind this, the publicists of the group. I had no idea this organization even existed. Yeah. The more that I learn about it, the more that I dig into it, we recognize it's the only Chamber of Commerce uniting and advocating for more than 100,000 2S LGBTQI owned and operated businesses in Canada. It's a huge community.
That's awesome. You know, what I think is the best is the Oilers are about to win a Stanley Cup, and their win song is a queer anthem. Let's go.
Hey, Pink Pony Club
was
resonating and banging around, reverberating off the office towers from the speakers, the tunes that you were spinning last night.
It's amazing.
At the Moss Pit. For context, people will hear this episode 6 months from now, 2 years from now. We are speaking on the heels. We are speaking on the heels of a massive overtime win in Game 4 to tie the Stanley Cup Final at 2 with Edmonton and Florida. And I've never been so grateful to hear Chapel Roan. I've never been so grateful to hear Pink Pony Club than I was last night.
I love seeing cis straight males singing 45 years old white at the top of their lungs queer anthems. It's like we're living in the Twilight Zone, but it's absolutely amazing driving around the city afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
And everyone's playing the same song, blasting out of their cars, and it's a quear anthem and it's Pride Month. It makes so much sense.
I love it. I feel like vibes are very high in the studio right now, and it probably has to do in part with this Real Talk Roundtable lineup that we've got joining us today. We're going to introduce you to them in 30 seconds, and then we will just turn them loose, and I'll just give you just a quick heads up, and we'll say it to their faces as well. But we're grateful that they're joining us today because this is like right in the middle of this Global Business Summit. It is happening as we speak, and so we're going to let the rubber hit the road here. Then you and I obviously will have to profess our love for the Oilers and talk hockey a little bit more after that. Hey, friends, this episode of Real Talk is presented by our friends at We Know Training. You can check them out online at wkt.ca. It's not just another training software company. This is a group that partners with governments, regulators, businesses across Canada. We know a lot of you are going to be watching this episode, managing entire credentialing programs. So think of it basically as plug-and-play training that's built for trust, compliance, and real-world impact. Well, how do they do it? Well, they're led by subject matter experts and lifelong learners. We Know Training bringing a human touch to tech-powered education. And they don't just build learning platforms. They help people and organizations level up. And in industries where compliance is critical, that makes all the difference. You can learn more and connect with We Know Training today on their website. That's wkt.ca. Let's get right to this. So I want to introduce an all-star panel here, Canada's business community. Sarah Evalina is Chief Operating Officer at Canada's 2S LGBTQI plus Chamber of Commerce. Sarain Fox is a well-known Indigenous activist, storyteller, and entrepreneur. And Moe Yassine, representing our Prairie province at this global summit, this national gathering. Moe's the board chair at Alberta's 2S LGBTQI plus Chamber of Commerce. To the three of you, welcome. We're so grateful to have you here. Please treat this like we're all out for coffee or martinis. Jump in on each other, challenge us, school us. We're grateful to have you here. Why don't we start with you, Sarah? The existence itself of this chamber, like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of members across the country, but I bet you that some people outside the community don't even know it exists.
Yeah, thank you for having us here. And you're right. We have existed since 2003. So incredible over 20-year run as the only or the leading national organization that is supporting queer businesses. But it was in 2003 where the federal government made an investment into queer entrepreneurship, $25 million over 3 years. And CGLCC, the chamber, we're administering it. So you've seen us on the map, or folks have seen us on the map a lot more over the last couple of years because of that federal investment, because of the opportunity that we've had to really be coast to coast to coast. So it's been a lot of growth over the past couple of years, and we're seeing that over these days where we're gathering in Toronto at our summit right now. Over 350 entrepreneurs and allies have come together. We're in the midst of day two right now, but had an incredible first day. And so grateful to have, Moe here alongside us representing the Alberta Chamber, but also special guest, Sarain, today. It's incredible.
And Sarain, I know that people are going to be watching right now, and they're going to be like, "We saw her on Canada's Drag Race. That's Sarain Fox. We know." You're a Canadian Screen Award winner, 2024. Congratulations for Best Interviewer for the work that you did in Wookiee Films, the 1-hour doc Indigiqueer. You've established yourself across the country as a storyteller and a connector. Why is your involvement with this business group so important?
Thank you so much for having me. And I could say a million reasons why this is so important. One of them being that I'm a queer entrepreneur who's also Indigenous. And so this is literally a group of people that will allow me to understand where I stand in this business landscape and be able to talk to people who have a unique perspective of doing business in the same way that I do. So as an activist, I've really worked in representation, and I've seen the power that meaningful representation has. And this is just another layer of that. Where really representing your own story and being able to hear other people's stories allows you to move further and have a stronger grasp on what you're doing. But, also for me, I have just been completely inspired, and my life, my career has been affected by really smart queer entrepreneurs. And that's just fact. So I think in every level for me as an artist in film and television, working with my makeup artist, like there isn't a single layer where I'm not working with really successful queer people. And I think that that's something that a lot of people in the entertainment industry are not speaking about. Like even if their whole team is queer, they're maybe only talking about themselves. So no, I'm a queer entrepreneur who has a team who is mostly queer, but also to talk about that nomination with Indigiqueer, I won against Canada's top news hosts, against The Agenda and Steve Packin. And so for Indigiqueer, a documentary about young queer people to win in that category, I don't know why more people aren't talking about it. I couldn't believe that I won. I didn't think in a million years that would happen. So, and again, another layer showing where we're at.
Yeah, incredible. Moe, welcome to the show. You're flying the Alberta flag out there. You're representing our province proudly. Anybody that works in real estate that's anywhere in Western Canada is going to recognize you for sure. But why was your experience similar to Sarain's? Like, early to mid stage in your career, or as you're really gaining traction, you're finding that other members of the community are elevating you, enlightening you, helping you lift yourself?
Thank you so much for having us, and good morning to you and your team. I believe the last time I had the pleasure of connecting with you was at the Edmonton Chamber Ball.
That's right.
And, even in the award recipients, before I answer your question, I was reflecting yesterday on connecting with you today, and just some of the amazing leadership that's coming out of Alberta, is coming out of Edmonton, Calgary, our rural municipalities. For me, as a professional in the province, I think my path was a little bit different in the sense where I don't say maybe different than a lot of our queer entrepreneurs and professionals, but in the sense where I felt like that I was a complete island. I didn't even realize there was really any kind of community that would, never mind be welcoming, just even be supportive, or this is something that we can connect on. So it was LinkedIn, out of all platforms, that I stumbled across the chamber through a comment in a post, and it was a very inflamed post, I would say. There was a lot of comments about, inclusion and what being queer in Alberta looks like, and how can someone be a part of a political party that is more conservative and still identify as queer, or someone, not myself, but it's just folks that are talking about the partisan piece in Alberta. And then throughout that, I connected with the Alberta Chamber, and that was 5 years ago. And ever since, I've had the immense privilege and pleasure of serving, on the board and working and connecting across all of Alberta. The beautiful thing about our organization is that we're nonpartisan, but unfortunately, we're not apolitical because our identities, our lives, our livelihoods are still being politicized to a great expense. It really from our perspective, and beyond just opposing any of the pieces regarding our community, it has to do with more distraction and pulling away from any of the key pieces that are bringing us together as economies across Canada, across Alberta. So for our chamber, we're a group of professionals, queer owned and operated businesses, nonprofits, allies, a group of dedicated folks in Alberta that want to build a more inclusive economy. We cannot afford to leave any aspect of who we are as individuals, as professionals, as Albertans, as Canadians. If we need to get where we need to get, there is no time for divisive rhetoric anymore. Politics is so toxic in business advancement from my perspective, and being able to establish a community that fosters inclusion, that fosters you showing up authentically exactly as you are and bringing the best that you have to provide your employers, your business, without having to worry about code switching or building any facade of really what you need to look like as a professional in Alberta. And that was a feedback I was given throughout my career in Alberta when I was younger, that you cannot be queer and be successful in certain areas that expect certain level of professionalism, or you're not going to find that success with having a Middle Eastern name and having a Middle Eastern background and heritage, and also being queer. Like, you're that one unicorn. You don't fit in any of those places. And when I discovered the chamber, I realized that that was just noise. It's under all that noise, there are communities that are there to uplift you. There are people that are dedicated to building our communities, our economies, our cities, regardless of any of this. Let's not forget who's building this province, who's building it. I've dedicated more than half of my life since my high school years in Alberta, and I will never subscribe to the rhetoric of Alberta is less than. But the approach to ensuring a representation across Canada, across the globe, the summit here in Toronto has been genuinely life-changing, not just for our team, but the level of return on time and effort in building connections, the collaborative business model across Alberta, across Western Canada, across Canada, and across the globe is a winning model. And I think that is what we're here to prove, as Alberta has everything to offer and will lead Canada in those fronts.
Oh, I love that, Mo, and I think Alberta's lucky to have somebody like you representing the province out there. I think it's probably safe to say, we'll circle back on this in just a little bit, that different jurisdictions across Canada are dealing with or managing or maybe even some cases fighting certain reputations, and I would imagine that Alberta would be on that list. Sarah, Mo talks about something. He talks about the politics of it, or whether or not it's political. Anecdotally, the other day on my personal social media feed, okay, I see a Conservative politician post a photo of a fire truck, but the fire truck has the pride flag on it, right? And the politician says, I prefer politics out of my first response. And then somebody leaves a comment that says, pride isn't political. What are you talking about? I think it's great that the fire truck has the pride flag. And then a friend of mine who happens to be gay, she hops on and she says, pride absolutely is political. And then she starts says, so where do you land on that? And like, what's the vibe at the conference? Is it like, a lot of people say pride was not founded on like corporations splashing the rainbow flag everywhere. Pride was founded on protest. Where do you land on that in 2025?
I agree with that statement. Pride started as a protest, and pride will remain a protest until we don't need to be protesting. And so that's the day that we look forward to, right? When inclusion is just a guarantee. And we're not there today. We're building towards that future. And that's why the chamber exists. But we're not there yet. So I would say Mo said it really well. We're not apolitical. We're nonpartisan, which means any government, we will sit down at the table and we want to build together. We want to build that more inclusive future together. But to be historically excluded, to be in the position that I get to be in, representing equity deserving entrepreneurs who have not had the same opportunities to grow their careers, I would say, especially like as themselves. Having to hide an identity when you enter a boardroom or a meeting space, when you're trying to, grow capital for your business. most people who've been in the room, and I say I'm pointing kind of downstairs. I'm above the conference right now, and I will head back down there soon. They've had those experiences of having to hide who they are. We have research that says 1 in 4, at least who've stated this, 1 in 4 entrepreneurs, queer entrepreneurs, have hidden their identity in business, and 1 in 4 have lost opportunities because of who they are. And so those are the stats that we want to change. That is the importance of us, I guess, to clearly answer your question, naming what is political and what is the change that we want to see. And a number of our programs, run in support of that. So we introduced mentorship, where we can have queer folks coming up and seeing representation ahead of themselves. That's not something that, I fought hard to find that for my career when I was younger. And then supplier diversity programs, where the government and where large corporate businesses are looking to diversify their supply chain, not only for the EDI of it all. It's good business, and especially at a time now where we're trying to buy Canadian and buy local, have diverse supply chains that are more resilient. Your businesses are right there. So a bit of a long-winded answer maybe to your question, but it's important to recognize, I guess, Pride and its roots as a protest as we enter a month that, yes, gets to have a lot of celebration. Celebrate, please, be visible, and continue the work throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and don't ever worry about being long-winded. That's how we roll on Real Talk Roundtables. So that's kind of the whole point. Scarlett's watching us now in our live chat, powered by Park Power. She says, I really love that distinction. Nonpartisan, but not apolitical. She says that's brilliant. By the way, Sharon says, I absolutely love Sarain. I'm about everything that she stands for, and those earrings are everything, Sarain. Sharon is loving your earrings. So there you have it. Can you talk to us? Like, what have you picked up? Like, you're someone that, you're an Anishinaabe activist, you're a storyteller, you've established yourself as that. So you understand putting your finger on the pulse of a room or of a group, and then communicating to others what you're picking up from it. When you're among these hundreds and hundreds of other entrepreneurs at this conference, what's sort of like a recurring theme that you're noticing? What's something that you think you're noticing is a real priority through a business lens at this conference?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So just to add to what you've already been saying, Pride started off as a riot in Toronto, and I was just at Hanlan's Island, and that's literally where the first Pride started, which is an occupation. And, I'm also an Indigenous person with a long history of frontline activism and occupation. And so I have that kind of background. And so I think it's really interesting. June becomes my month. It's Indigenous Peoples Month, Indigenous History Month, and Pride Month. And so my whole life, I've always thought that the parade was like my parade. It wasn't just the Pride parade, it was ours as Indigenous people as well. So I think what I'm picking up, what's the pulse here at the conference is that kind of energy. I think there's an energy here where people, business owners, entrepreneurs, they have that riot in them. But they also understand how that energy can propel them to the top of any business, the top of success. And it's because, just like me as an Indigenous person and a queer person, we're used to fighting. We have always had to fight, and we've had to fight to exist. We've had to fight to have our stories heard. We've had to fight to have capital, to have access to capital. We've had to fight. Like, this is the mayor. This is a queer-owned business that's in the heart of Yorkville. It has the best storefront. And I guarantee you that lots of people don't even know that's a queer-owned business. It's the mayor. They're on Drag Race. But, I think that there is this energy where people want to prove that this isn't just a conference about being queer and being an entrepreneur. This is a conference where the world gets to peer in at the talent that exists in the queer community. So yes, we're categorizing it, but I think here we're all just lifting each other up to say, like, yes, absolutely, you should be getting this. You should be known. People should know your work. They should know who you are because it's brilliant. And I think that's what I'm hearing. And then also this idea that we really have to stand up for each other right now. There's no denying that the political landscape is terrifying. And, we're looking at Pride Toronto. Home Depot pulled out. I personally will not be shopping at Home Depot. Not to get political, but, where we spend our money is a big part of how we stand up for our community. And so I will no longer be shopping at Home Depot because they pulled out of the Pride Parade in Toronto. So I'll just leave that there.
I think consumers have a ton of power, and we see consumers flex their muscles all the time. Moe, I don't have to tell you, you as an entrepreneur and obviously somebody that's very involved in community in Alberta. I mean, I could go through your list, but just let people know that you support nonprofit Inclusion Alberta, Shelter Movers, Habitat for Humanity. You've done a ton. You've been on the boards for many different organizations, a board chair, as mentioned as well, for the Alberta 2S LGBTQI plus Chamber of Commerce. So this is something that you have informed perspective on. We talk a lot about this Alberta Advantage. We talk a lot about the Alberta is Calling campaign, the idea to sort of try to attract and recruit skilled young workers to the province, and we're seeing it. Calgary and Edmonton collectively are adding 150,000 people every single year, if you can believe it. But at the same time, and I say this as a proud Albertan, as somebody that's proud to live here, there's no doubt that our home province also has a bit of a reputation across the rest of the country, deserve it or otherwise. A lot of people think that we're a bunch of hillbillies, we're a bunch of hicks, right? That we're the types of people that as soon as a pride crosswalk is painted, that somebody in their diesel dually is going to come and roll coal and squeal the tires all the way through the crosswalk. We've seen the stories, the ones that turn our stomach. Is part of your work when you're gathering with colleagues from across the country to advocate for Alberta, is part of your work to represent this province? How do you kind of sort that out?
I thank you so much for asking that question, because as you posed it earlier as to really the common themes of a lot of the conversations I've been personally having regarding the Alberta landscape and the work that we're doing as an organization in Alberta and the other amazing organizations in Alberta that are doing the work. I'd say, not ever since my involvement and more exposure to diverse perspectives in the queer world, I started thinking less in the binary, in the sense of so many of the things that you said are true, but also we have a role to play of showing exactly who Albertans are and what's the true story and the reality of Albertans. Albertans feel disconnected from the rest of Canada and feel that there's an unfair approach to Albertans that I feel so many of the folks that mean so well and well-intended have no idea about as to why Albertans feel the way they do, and being able to bridge the impact conversations about why Alberta feels the way it does on the national scale from an economic perspective. We were able to break through so many different conversations, whether industry, whether inclusion, whether economic empowerment, how we build economic corridors. And for the first time in many years, I felt seen as an Albertan because there's dialogue. We're listening. We're sitting down actually with one collective goal of building on the common ground. Where does the common ground exist? Even if it's a sliver, we need to start building on it in our municipalities, in our provinces, in our country. Alberta, without a doubt, still provides a lot of hostility in a lot of spaces, but that's a reality that existed around the world for a while. It's up to us to really break that cycle. So when you take a look in terms of what we're trying to achieve as Albertans, I am one of the proudest Albertans that there is. I refuse to adopt the mentality of that you can either be an Albertan or you can be a Canadian, or that you can be queer or you can be a person of faith, or have so many intersective aspects of who we are as people. If we're not going to tap into every aspect of it, if we're not going to shine a light as to what queer excellence in business looks like, what does Albertan excellence in business look like? Because Alberta leads economic achievement around the world in many areas. My belief and our organization's belief is that business is responsive, business is nimble, business is able to break down barriers and concepts in society that will move all of us forward. So if we want to attract and retain the best of talents, we want to grow our economy, we want to attract entrepreneurs and professionals and innovators, we need to pay attention as to the noise that is taking place in our province that's distracting, and not just distracting from that, that is deterring from that. As a real estate professional, I know firsthand from my clients, the ones that have either changed course about moving to Alberta or the ones that are preparing me to say, should talk about separatism take hold in the province, it's going to change our outlook on our businesses, on our properties. So it terrifies me when you hear that, because Alberta isn't that. You're just getting a light that is filtered down and disseminated through media that doesn't reflect the reality of millions of Albertans that are living there. It doesn't mean that those voices that are opposed to it there's extremism in everything, everywhere you go. And if we continue going towards the polls and the polarizing really a nation and our province, we're never going to find that middle ground. Throughout this summit, I think I'm coming back to Edmonton with tens and hundreds of conversations of how we can build on what Alberta has to offer. And for people to be invited to actually partake in a real talk and dialogue that is not divisive and it's not competitive. Let's collaborate, because I don't think you know who we are as Albertans and as queer Albertans here.
I love that you put it
Well,
that
and
way. Yeah, go ahead, Sarain.
Sorry, the Indigenous perspective is just completely missing from that. Also, I think like even the conversation of separatism without an Indigenous lens is just like foolish.
Right.
Yeah, agreed.
But
yeah, it's well, yeah. I saw somebody post yesterday. You can't take something that never belonged to you in the first place, which I think is like kind of the whole thing summed up in one sentence. Sarah, do you see there's so much talk now, just nationally, internationally, about broadening trade relationships, attracting new investors, eliminating interprovincial or international trade barriers. Are you seeing that happen in real time with the hundreds and hundreds of people that are gathering here in Toronto? And is that a bit of a different feel than in years past?
I would say there's absolutely a different feel to the tone of the conversations that we've been having for certainly the past 6-8 months around trade, international trade, how we're developing businesses, who we're doing business with. We are right on the heels of CGLCC's first ever domestic trade mission. So for a decade, we've been doing trade missions, taking our members, so queer entrepreneurs and their businesses around the globe to begin to export or to support their opportunities of exporting their business goods. And a lot of those trips in past years have been down to the US. And this year, as we looked around like what was going to be both most impactful and safest for our members to be participating in, we latched onto or saw the opportunity with the federal government talking about reducing interprovincial trade barriers, and did a domestic trade mission. So looking to bring businesses across provinces together to begin to, again, meet each other. And a lot of what I love about queer business is these folks are meeting. They are then partnering on opportunities themselves. They don't always have to look for the corporate opportunity. They are buying from each other. They are hiring one another. And so there's a lot of work that is going into just like getting to know other queer entrepreneurs and bringing those folks together. And then I would say like seeing the magic happen. On that domestic trade mission, it was to Vancouver right around the time of Web Summit. So a massive tech conference. We were able to book a lot of meetings for the 25 businesses who came along, who came to Vancouver to do business in new markets. And we're right on the heels of it. So what I can say at this point is like incredible conversations happened. And now we're in Toronto for our summit. And we have international chambers of commerce from Uruguay, from Colombia, NGLCC, who represents queer and trans business owners in the States. They've come up to Canada, recognizing that there is still importance of maintaining like really strong relationships between the queer business owners on both sides of the borders, regardless of who is in power. So we want to keep those relationships strong, but we are also recognizing that there's an opportunity for us to do more business in Canada, maintain a strong Canadian economy. And I mean, to points that Sarain and Moe have made already, queer folks are here. We're not going anywhere. There's over 100,000 of identified queer entrepreneurs in Canada. And when I say that 1 in 4 is hiding their identity in certain situations in business to protect either themselves or their business, I say think about how many more there really are, and how many, the impact there that we have on the economy. It's at minimum $22 billion that has been studied that queer entrepreneurs are impacting year over year into the Canadian economy. So like you can't ignore that. It's impossible to ignore that. And so imagine what will happen if we continue to support that rather than to try to push that away. So incredible work has been happening domestically. And when we look beyond the US, internationally. In the fall, we'll have an international trade mission that is taking us to England and to France. And so just continuing to strengthen relationships with folks that we've been working with for years and years, and expanding international trade at a time where it's riskier to be doing business with our closest historical trading partner. There's tons of other opportunities both here and abroad for queer entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to calling them our historical trading partner because it's just so bonkers right now. Sarain, I love this from Noob Try Again, who's in our live chat, powered by Park Power. Noob says, as a business owner who also strives to be an ally, how can we support and work together with your community? He says this is a great roundtable. What would you say?
Well, I mean, we're talking about the economy and the choices we make. And, June is a really great month to shop Indigenous, to shop queer, to support the incredible collaborations that mainstream brands are doing with queer artists. To shout one out, Joe Fresh has a collaboration with Brooklyn Heights. You don't even have to go out of your way to get that. You can just get it while you're getting milk and bread at the grocery store, and there you have your pride. I hope you do more than that, but I'm just letting you know how easy it is. It can be something that you do early in the morning. If you have a family, it's a really amazing time to go out to the incredible events that are happening in every city across this country. Take your family to Pride. Teach your kids that being queer is not about who you sleep with. It's a frame of mind. It's a way of living and showing up and being. And then we can start to unmask the layers of shame that exist. That comes from colonial thinking. As an Indigenous person, our beliefs were colonized by the church and by the institution, and that deleted our ways of knowing and being, which was more than 7 or 8 genders. And some other tribes, I can only speak for my own, but some other tribes have even more than that. And so the scope, the way that we've been seeing the world is because we're all colonized. But if we start to lift those layers, we see that, gender is actually, the conversations around gender are not allowing us to show up as how we are, whether we're queer or not. Just it suppresses us, and it doesn't allow us to share our story. So what I really hope this month does is it inspires people to tell their own story, to look deeper, to acknowledge their own queerness, and maybe to let it shine a little brighter if that's something that you're ready for.
I love it. And I also have to point out, just because most people will hear this on a podcast, when you're talking about shining brighter, you are head to toe in sequins right now. You look absolutely fabulous as you move around. It's like you are like a crystal ball on a disco ball on a couch. You look unbelievable right now. And I can just tell with all three of you, when you guys talk, you really give a shit. It's very obvious how deeply you care about that. And I think that that's just so important when you're advocating. I mean, it's an obvious thing that I'm saying, but this is something that you're living. Sarain, you just said there, you said this is not about who we sleep with. There's a regular contributor to our live chat today, Erica. And I know Erica to have a good heart. I don't know her personally, but she's always in there commenting. And she says, I'm enjoying this roundtable. These people are fine. She goes, but I don't understand why you need a chamber of commerce based on who you're sleeping with. And then other people in the chat are saying, well, it's not about who you're sleeping, but you just touched on that. Yeah. So if you and Erica were sitting down and having a martini, what would you say to her?
Well, I would ask her what her views on gender normalities are and where she stands in the binary. And then I would say, hey, look, that's not how I show up. And so you can't put your idea of who you are as a mask on me, because then it doesn't allow me to actually resonate. It doesn't allow me to, you're not letting me be heard. So, whoa, let me take a deep breath. What I would actually say is, as somebody who is bi, I think this is a really perfect place to talk about this, because bi erasure is real. And the reason I always say that your queerness isn't based on who you're sleeping with is because that's something that is thrown at me all the time. When I'm in a same-sex relationship, it's really easy for people to see me as queer. But, I'm married to a man, and I have 2 babies, and I am no less queer today in that relationship than I was, in previous relationships, because my queerness is how I see the world. The binary doesn't go through me and divide me. I feel as though I am fluid, as though I am like water, that I can trickle through places that I wasn't supposed to be and show up. I call myself a shapeshifter because I really do feel like I can shapeshift into any room, and even a room that might not physically want me to live or exist. If I have the opportunity to speak and I can change one person's view in that room, I actually think we can change the world. And so that's queerness. The belief
And
is queerness.
isn't that, just as Sarain speaks to, being in rooms where someone may not want me to either be there or be, a point of having a chamber where you can be in rooms like we are downstairs, and know that there are other folks who are, one, experiencing that, which is awful, but that we get to come together and create spaces that are safe and that are welcoming for us. I speak a lot about historical exclusion, and sometimes when you use the words like historical, it sounds like this is generations and generations ago, and barriers facing queer folks. I find it helpful, and Sarain just did so, like telling our own stories. My historical exclusion and the barriers that I faced, I was kicked out of my home when I was 17 years old for being gay, which at 17, when you're then out on the streets, I didn't have a traditional path through university. Instead of a planned path through university, I'm figuring out how many jobs I can work to keep a roof above my head. And I, through luck and privilege and some opportunity, was able to move beyond that and see myself in the spaces that I am now and hold the positions that I am, doing so today. But not everyone who has experienced what I did at that age has the privilege and the luck and the opportunity to move through it. And so that's not so long ago. Historical exclusion is happening. It's present day exclusion. And what we were working towards is a future where there is less of that exclusion, and less of those barriers. Because when you then don't have the university network, or the access to generational wealth to support you in starting your own business, a credit history, because you're figuring out how to get a credit card. These aren't the stories of every single person who is a queer entrepreneur, of course, but they're common. And the barriers may look a little bit different than what I just described for myself, but they exist in varied ways and kind of all around the different experience that can be brought to the table that hasn't been traditionally accepted or desired. And I would just point to like the benefit of diversity in business is studied. McKinsey does a report every 3 years that continues to prove, like in the stock market, more diverse teams are out, like businesses are outperforming other businesses when they have more diverse teams. And they talk about it specifically in like diversity of thinking. Well, how do you get diversity of thinking? You have diversity of experience. And when I just shared this as my experience that looked a lot different than heading from high school to university to a traditional career path, but I certainly bring experience. And a lot of that is like real world lived experience. Think about different tables or different conversations that happen at different tables when you're able to pull those different, I guess, voices and experiences together. And so I guess I just share a little bit to ground the conversation in a story. I think storytelling is helpful. And I'm now at a point in my career where I get to like share a bit about that past journey. And certainly the trauma that it brought, but on the other side. And I want to be able to share that story, that there is another side, and that when you get the opportunity to engage with the chamber, or come out to an event or be in a room of other queer entrepreneurs, you know that you're not alone. And Moe spoke to that, of growing up and being like, well, I guess I need to hide pieces of my identity in order to be in business. And what we're proving here through these days together, and certainly all of the events and a growing membership, and a growing allied business base as well, is that you can show up as yourself. And we want that to just be more accepted and more welcomed in more spaces.
I love that. That's so beautifully said. I want to. I just want to recognize that the two of you, or the three of you, have a schedule. I know in particular, a couple of you have commitments like starting right now, so we got to let you go. And I want to keep you for like another 2 hours because I feel like we're just hitting our stride right now. But I'll tell you this: this is how we typically wrap our Real Talk roundtables. We want to give each panelist a chance to make sure that we don't leave something unsaid. And if there's something just like burning itself in your brain, something really on your heart, something you want this audience to walk with when they're in transit or walking their dogs or riding their bikes or whenever they're listening to this podcast, want to leave them with something. Moe, why don't you go first? A closing thought.
Thank you so much once again to all of you for allowing the platform, for sharing some real insights. As an Albertan, as an Edmontonian, as a member of the community, I invite first and foremost everyone to take a moment and adopt a little bit of a mindset of a collaborative common ground building. My belief is that the majority of Albertans are kind-hearted and we all look after one another and we're neighborly and we're entrepreneurial and we can change the world if we just come together. I believe we are the beating heart of this nation in economic empowerment and achievement. Let's open up our eyes to actually who's in our cities, who are in our neighborhoods, in our rural communities, what someone might think a queer person or a gay person or a trans person is. Come to our events, come and get to know the community. Our threshold or bar for being connected with our organization or team is that no behavior that's harmful or perceived as harmful to the 2S LGBTQI plus or greater queer community. That being said, the reason our organizations need to exist to a certain capacity or to a certain purpose is to ensure there is a bare minimum level of safety for those in our community that don't feel that they can dive into the dialogue with other folks that. So, for example, we talk about it takes a lot for someone to carry a respectful conversation and in decorum in policy, in business, sitting across the table from someone that is dedicating their political or personal or professional career to your erasure of your identity or who you are, or the empathy for us as humans. I believe we're in a world, sadly, that there is no baseline of, oh, okay, I'm going to see the humanity in you and we're going to be friends or neighbors or colleagues and the world is rainbows and unicorns, which really isn't. But what is happening in Alberta is that our communities are so diverse, and not just the queer communities. It's time for us to build collaborative bridges with every aspect of diverse business, like Sarah had said, the Indigenous business associations, the Black business associations, women-led and gender diverse businesses. It's time to capitalize on everything that makes us great and learn from everything that has been a barrier till this day. The interprovincial connections that we've done at the summit with BC, with Saskatchewan, with Manitoba, Ontario, Atlantic Canada, with government, on all fronts for better business, for better policy. Good policy, good business policy, or good government policy isn't exclusive to any one political party. We rise together. This is not a zero-sum game. I am dedicated to seeing the best possible Alberta economy, and that comes with the most diversified economy. So let's show up to work. Let's build a one unified Canadian economy. Let's lead the world in every aspect that we're moving forward with it. And let's shine our light bright and just show the world how it's done.
I love that call to action. Hey, Sarain, Sharon Morin's in our chat right now. She says the Cree word for water means I am fluid. How cool is that?
It's really cool. I love that.
What's your last word to our audience?
Oh, yeah. So I was really thinking, what do I really want to say? And, part of having a platform is sharing it with others. And I think what's really important for everyone who's listening, watching, to know and to shine light on is the situation for trans people, not only in this country, but abroad. And it's so much more than bathrooms. So if you are somebody who wants to be an ally, bathrooms are political now. And so it's an opportunity to show up. You could be somebody's safe haven. You could guard a doorway. You could never, ever comment if someone's using a single bathroom that's a labeled as a handicap bathroom. My new thing is that handicap bathrooms are also safe bathrooms. So I would just say now is the time to realize that, yes, we are all endangered, I would say. I don't know why I laughed when I said that. We're all in danger, and trans people are in even more danger right now. And they're in danger of even being allowed to exist. And I think what we're seeing in the States with passports not even allowing to be reflected of people's genders and just not accepting, as an Indigenous person who was also not seen as a human being, in the doctrine even was seen as a heathen. I feel like the world is dangerously close to those same real harms that took place that caused erasure. And we cannot allow erasure to happen to our peers, to our loved ones, to our community. So if I want to leave you with anything, if you're going to learn more about anything for Pride, if you want to do something, stand up for trans people.
Amazing. Sarah, last word to you.
Sarain, just as you were speaking there and said, like, I don't know why I laughed. This is an important conversation. And I find it like so often we are forced to keep things light and palatable, to have a space, to create space for the issues that we are advocating for, and just want to acknowledge acknowledge and thank this space, this round table for existing in ways that we are able to, share the weight of the work and also its importance and also the successes. So I am thinking, if I had like last words, and I feel like, the pressure of doing so in June, because we get this like 1 month where all of the organizations want to talk to, CGLCC or Queerness and Pride. And so I'm like, all year would be nice. My marketing manager was like, can we just make the call that like we exist the other 11 months of the year? And so, hoping to continue to have
so
these
true though. It's so true.
Talking. But and I don't say that with any like slight, because like,
I know you
we
don't
will take every opportunity.
It's the same
in June.
thing. It's the same thing in February with Black History Month, right? Like know, it's like, the exact same thing.
Yeah, but imagine Black History Month was also in June.
Right.
Like,
Exactly. I know.
Like,
Sarain was at the intersection of everything that's happening in June, which is incredible. But yeah, all year.
Any other month. Sorry. I'm sorry, Sarah.
No. The thing that I wanted to share, if I had last words and taking away, Sarain was talking around trans folks, and I mean, like, the impact of something like CGLCC Summit. In front of me, I have this book. At 8 a.m., 7:45, 8 a.m. this morning, I was already in conversation with one of our suppliers, our members, who was telling me the stories of their trans kid. And then out of her bag, she pulled a book that she wrote about the experience of trans youth, and those are like the depth, like the heart of the conversation and the pulse of the organization. Like, what other conference am I sitting around eating breakfast, 7:45 a.m., one being gifted a book, but also getting to talk about the experience of trans youth and the importance of advocacy. So yeah, we're a business organization, and maybe I should be making the call for membership, because we would love to have more membership. We would love to have more sponsorship. We would love to have more corporates joining us to invest in queer entrepreneurship. But when you look at the youth, those are our future entrepreneurs. Those are our future, like that is the future of Canada. And so there's an important call there as well. And queer folks are everywhere. We're not going anywhere. We have always been here. And we're your neighbors, we're your friends, we're your colleagues, we're your mothers, we're your accountants, we're your corner store owners. Like, we're normal people. And so getting to know more queer folks, and certainly June Pride Month, support queer business owners and the intersectionality of the community. So, and
something tells me you probably throw the best parties at your summits. I just call it a hunch. If the way that you three have shown up today is any indication, that is a room that I think a lot of people would love to be in. And if you are a queer entrepreneur in Canada, or if you're listening to this from outside of Canada, there's an international sort of a collaboration here that's happening. It's really remarkable. You can learn more about it at cglcc.ca. And Mo, I'll link to your Alberta Chamber as well in the show notes on the podcast and on YouTube. We've been hanging out. I feel like I made Mo, you and I already kind of knew each other, but I feel like I've solidified 3 new friendships today. Moe Yassine, Sarah Evalina, and Sarain Fox. We've kept you 20 minutes too long. I hope you didn't miss delivering a keynote or anything like that.
Okay.
But you know what? Sorry, not sorry. And thank you for hanging out with us, and happy Pride.
Thank you. Happy Indigenous Peoples Month and Pride.
Happy Indigenous Peoples Month. Absolutely, Sarain. We really appreciate your perspectives.
Thank you.
All
Thank you,
right,
Sarah.
take
Thank
care,
you, Mo.
Hey, fly that Alberta flag,
Thank you,
Mo.
Mo.
All right, do us well. Do us well out there.
And go Oilers.
And go Oilers, absolutely.
I don't know.
All right. Oh, we finally found something we cannot agree on. Okay, that's okay.
I'm not real. I just feel like I have to be a Leafs fan, and we're never going to the play.
Yeah, it's okay. You can feel your pain. The nice thing about being a Leafs fan is you can commiserate with millions of other people who will feel the same pain.
I was like, Mo left. I bet we're going to see Swag. Yeah,
There he is,
perfect.
Mo with his Oilers sweater. Attaboy. You know, that is
Pony Club.
Pink Pony Club, baby. That is business casual in Alberta right now, at least in the northern part of it. All right, one love, you guys. Thanks for doing this. We appreciate you.
One love. Thank you.
Okay, amazing. Sarain Fox, Sarah Evalina, and Moe Yassine. I love when roundtables go like that. It like starts off, everyone's being professional. Everyone's like, advocating and talking about the things that obviously that matter. It's my job to get the most important questions out there first. Now, I'll recognize when you're interviewing someone who's just won a Canadian Screen Award for Best Interviewer, that's also a little bit intimidating. But by the end of it, it's like just 3 incredible people that obviously care very deeply, not just about what they do, but also about their fellow human beings. I loved this from Cheryl outside on our live chat, powered by Park Power. She says, well, what does gender have to do with my job? She says, a lot, if it means that I'm missing opportunities because of my gender. And she says, and that's why marginalized voices matter. And I think that she hits the nail on the head there. Super Chat Ken with $5. Thanks, buddy. Into the Super Chat says one of the reasons he says he's a YouTube member and donates to this show is that you and I, he says, besides being great at our jobs, thank you, Ken, very kind, says we have big open hearts. He says, what a roundtable full of great people. And I feel the same way, Ken. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was great. M. Aiken with the slam dunk on the chat today when bathrooms came up said, how many gender-specific bathrooms do you have in your home?
Right.
It just nailed it on the head. I mean, I was watching a clip yesterday of Donald Trump before he got elected, and the bathroom thing came up before the bathroom thing was even a huge thing. And he said the same thing. He says it's silly. It's nonsense. People go to the bathroom where they please. If one's busy, go in the other one. What does it matter? And now, of course, he's changed his tune with obviously the rhetoric backing his party. But I think that's one of the silliest, even at Rogers Place when there's a hockey game, man.
Yeah.
I see people going in man, you got to go to the bathroom. Just go.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out why the lineups for men's washrooms are always. I know this is not where we should be taking.
Well,
this
they have
conversation.
more women's bathrooms.
Is that
what
why?
it
Is that the answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've just thought maybe are women just more efficient? We don't need to get into this at this point, but I've always wondered the men's are always lined up.
Well, I think you
all
need
the
more
way
room
around.
for a women's bathroom, which is why you need more to accommodate. You know what I mean? Because there's stalls instead of guys. Don't go in a men's bathroom at an Oilers game when it's a packed house because they'll go in a corner.
Tom, the sink. Tom says the message that some people can't control themselves and will go crazy attacking others in a bathroom is just an excuse for sexual assault behavior. I saw an interesting comment somebody posted the other day. I don't remember on what social platform, but somebody basically said that they were in it was a woman that was writing. She said, I was in a washroom the other day and a trans woman came in and she said she complimented me on my lipstick, I think she said, and then we both washed our hands and went on our way. And she
Isn't
said,
that what happens
she says,
99.9%
well, and she said,
of
though,
the
she said,
time?
I've had way sketchier experiences outside of the women's washroom, in that sort of a scenario. Tony says back in the day, she always went into the men's bathrooms because the lineups for the women, she said, we would announce our presence and we would stand guard. And Tony says, and the guys loved it. 100%. Absolutely. I appreciate all these comments that are coming in here. Bunny Slipper says, if you're a good person, if you treat others with respect, if you work honestly, that's all I need to know. Says that. It goes on to say that. Others of you are just talking about, how about this from Boomshanker X? I appreciate you sharing this. Says, I used to be homophobic, but as I grew up and started thinking for myself, I decided to just filter out the assholes that from Boomshanker X.
Weren't we all, though? I mean, if something's foreign to you and you don't know about it, of course you're going to have fear, and then fear creates hate. And that's why we need months like Pride Month. I mean, people, when people bring up, why do we need Pride Month? Well, like 10% globally identify in the LGBTQ community. Is a month, I mean, the math works out to like 1.2. They should get a month and a half, really. But like, what's the problem with elevating these people? And I try to steer away from all this during the month. I just try to support, queer art, queer music, queer culture in general. I was talking about this at the start of the month. Like, do you know how much art and culture we would be missing out on without queer people creating it, promoting it, developing it?
Yeah, we went through the list. That whatever episode that was, a recent one. It was it's unbelievable when you put it into perspective. And I love the business hook on this too, the business angle. Like, it's fascinating. I'm even interested. Like, if you just do like a straight up, solid Chamber of Commerce type interview with these experts, with these guests. And you're asking questions like, do you have recruitment or retention issues among the queer community in a province that has a national reputation for not? And listen, I got to be careful, and I want to be careful and spell this out. When I'm talking about Alberta, I am so proud to be from Alberta, and
So am I.
love Alberta. I live in Alberta on purpose. I'm raising my kids here for a reason.
I left and came back.
So this is not a slight at Alberta, but also the show's called Real Talk, and everybody thinks, a lot of people across the country think that Alberta is a certain way. Whether that's true in every single community remains to be seen, but there is an issue, undeniably. And so I wanted to ask Moe about that. Like, when it comes to actual business, recruiting talent, is that an issue? Or when you talk about like eliminating interprovincial trade barriers, that's a business conversation. But is there something happening in the queer community that maybe gives some businesses, maybe not an advantage, or maybe there is? I mean, we've got some great business advice when we were starting this company, when we started Relay. One of the smartest people I know said to me, identify your unfair advantages and exploit them. And I thought that was great business principles. And a big part of that is networking. A big part of that is your connections, your relationships. Sure. And so that's why I think like a national queer chamber is a really
so
interesting.
Necessary.
I'd never even heard of it
I
before.
mean, we're doing the whole Alberta is calling thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're calling everyone. We're not just calling specific type of people to come here, right?
Wobbly Inc. says and I love feedback like this, says like, what a round table, what a joyous round table. I love that word. Says, and what a way to just wrap up the week.
And
agree.
can I
thought
say
that
one
was
of the
great.
best dressed and best energy of the week as well.
Oh my
I think,
gosh.
yeah, they win this week for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Like three of the best dressed guests we've had all year.
That's everyone.
Sarain, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. Like, she's a TV personality. She's like, obviously she's on, Canada's Drag Race and the like, but like that jacket, I'm like, I'm realizing I have a real deplorable lack of sequins. I have no options. Like, if I
gotta get on the sequins.
I have a in my line of work, obviously I've got to have a few. I'd have a few tuxedos, three of them, and they all look different because you got to some weeks maybe you're hosting 3 galas, you can't wear the same thing 3 times, right? And one of them, you'll know I'm either deep into my rotation if you're at a gala and you see me wearing this, or I'm feeling sassy. But I have a black velour dinner jacket, and it is like when I put that thing on, I just think it's like I like look in the mirror like Shania. I'm like, let's go, girls. Like, it's that coat, a great coat, can really do something.
And on a Zoom too. Like, and I'm not downplaying our other guests when they pop in here sometimes with a t-shirt and a hat on, but that was great today. And I also don't want to downplay, like, we're not trying to make fun and talk about like their energy and their clothes. Like, I was saying that, it's a month where I support the culture and the music. I'm a DJ, so obviously that's what's important to me.
Yeah.
But I do agree, like, obviously what they were trying to reiterate is that Pride Month is still about protest. It is still about people trying to be themselves, trying to live in a world that is, they're constantly pushing against the grain. That is the main point of Pride Month, right?
100%. And I think some of the statistics that they're sharing are striking. Like they say, what was it? 1 in 4 queer business people, queer entrepreneurs in Canada feel like they're kind of like keeping their identity on the down low, right? That's something that they're not necessarily 100% comfortable in their own workplace, sharing that type of thing.
Well,
and there are still barriers that exist. And I thought that was an important point by Sarah too, when she said, when she wants to talk about historical issues, she's going, this wasn't like 100 years ago. right? This, you know, some historical issues that the queer community has faced in or outside of business could have been like 3 years ago, could be 6 months ago, could have been last week for somebody.
Well, we need to create those safe spaces, especially where you work. Like, come on. 80s Family in the chat today had an amazing comment. He said, when I see a pride flag or an LGBTQ sign in a business, I know it's a safe place for my family. It's true. You can go in there. You can be yourself. You can talk freely. You don't have to worry. You don't have to have your back and your neck up when you go in there. And we need to create those spaces everywhere.
Yeah, 100%. I see Tommy Temper in our chat. YouTube talk show host himself says, you know, what you do in your own bedroom is your own business, but putting in my face continuously is not constructive. I would just say, like, if what you took, Tommy, from that whole conversation was like had to do with fucking.
That's why we have this month.
So I don't understand that, and I think that is why we need to have these conversations, because like literally nothing about what they said, like literally none of it had anything to do with sex. Sex acts, any sort of acts of physical affection or expression or otherwise. There was literally none of it. It's about who people are and what they do. In other words, their line of work, their career, their calling, and the barriers that they face based on who they are. And I think that's why these conversations are so important and why we're proud to have them. Listen, these conversations don't happen without friends of ours like the Edmonton Opera, and they have been nailing it for the past couple of weeks with a spectacular production of Die Walküre. Of course, this is the next installment of the Ring cycle, building on Das Rheingold, a bold new vision of Wagner's iconic work. This is a production in collaboration, the Edmonton Opera working with the Citadel Theatre, which is something really new for them. But it means that you're not in your classic opera house setting, right? You're in the McLab Theatre at the Citadel, which means that you are up close and personal with these incredible world-class performers. Now, here's the deal. Tonight's the last night. So if you want to see this, you got to get your tickets right now at edmontonopera.com. It's guaranteed to appeal to both Wagner enthusiasts and new opera fans. A really unique blend of tradition and modern storytelling. It's Die Walküre at the Edmonton Opera Citadel Theatre tonight, edmontonopera.com. California Closets, best in the business, bar none, at custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home, and they are proudly Canadian owned and operated. I love that every single installation that they're putting in, whether that's a dream walk-in closet or maybe that's your dream laundry room, your mudroom, your boot room, your garage, it's all manufactured right here in Alberta. This is a family-owned business that treats every project as though it's their own. California Closets can work with any space and any budget. Don't fool yourself. Don't be one of those that's listening to me right now and you go, I could never afford California Closets. Try them out. The consultation's free, so you got nothing to lose. You can sit down with their team of designers. They can talk to you about their different levels, custom designed to fit your budget, from practical simplicity all the way up to the no-holds-barred absolute luxury, the luxury refined level. You can check it all out yourself at californiaclosets.ca. Friesen Brothers has you covered this weekend. If you don't have a plan for Father's Day, may I humbly suggest, if you're anywhere near a Friesen Brothers Fresh Market store, that you check out their Medieval Feast. Yeah, that's right. They've got a Medieval Feast coming up Saturday and Sunday this weekend. That's June 14th and 15th. Medieval Times at Friesen Brothers is back. All you can eat from the buffet, including medieval roasted chicken, smoked beef chuck, beer braised onions, herb roasted baby potatoes, garlic bread, a full salad bar, and more. It's open from 4 to 8 p.m. Friesen Brothers Fresh Market Stores. You can learn more details on their website, friesen.com. And a quick message to those of you that maybe, I don't know, last night you were staring at the ceiling for like an hour and a half, and you should have been sleeping because you can't stop thinking about your portfolio. You can't stop thinking about your family's financial future. You can't stop wondering if you're well set up enough, if life blesses you into your mid-90s, or if your kids need an infusion of cash, or if maybe you want to start a new business. Can you handle or navigate fluctuations in the market? This is what North Road Investment Council does. They answer these questions, and their team, led by Marshall and Carrie, would love to connect with you to talk about what makes them different. Certified financial planners, chartered financial analysts, and you'd pay them a per-hour fee, not through commissions. They're not trying to sell you a bunch of products from the big bank. There's no fluff. There's no pressure. Just clear advice and strategies that make sense from North Road Investment Council at northroadic.com.
Oh, there's nothing better, Ryan, I tell you, than driving around and listening to the radio and hearing these companies we were formerly employed from blasting your voice talking about Freezing Bros. I just love it.
Somebody asked me about that yesterday. They said, do you ever get a kick out of the fact that you're still voicing commercials on the station that fired you? I said I would do it for free. Just don't tell Freezing Brothers. Just don't tell Freezing Brothers. But I will say that showing up to work today felt a little bit different. This is just like, I'm just going to take you behind the curtain, friends. As you walked into our space, John, did your feet stick to the floor the minute that you walked into?
Smelt it the minute I walked in today. We had the fans going. I'm like, smells like Molson Canadian in here. But I'm in agreement with you, and I think you would agree with me that post Oilers Stanley Cup Final game win days, the next day should be a holiday.
Yeah.
It should just be not that I'm saying we should have the day off, but it should just be a holiday, because the energy, you see the energy post-game after a loss in the city, like the game 3 compared to game 4.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
people are driving to work in jerseys today. They're laughing.
Yeah.
They're walking down the street. They're high-fiving. It's just, I'll say it again. I've said it a million times. How can you not be romantic about hockey? It affects everyone, whether you like it or not. It affects your day because people around you are in a better mood when a win happens. And last night, I mean, I'll just say it right now because I know we're going into it. Leon Draisaitl MVP. Like, come on. If they win the cup, like this guy, four
unbelievable
Stanley Cup playoff overtime goals, 2 in 1 series. He's now the leader all time and just an incredible player. I love that German. Let's make him a full-fledged Canadian. Let's keep him here forever. Keep him forever. Keep him and Nuge forever.
Yeah. Keep Leon and Nuge forever. Well, we've got Leon locked up into a deal.
Which means we've got Connor, because they're buddies,
I think means
right?
we've got Connor. Did I tell you I was story time? We're going to tell you a couple of stories here. One of them,
around, guys.
I was honored to be a guest of the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce at the Junior Achievement Northern Alberta Business Hall of Fame the other night. And a rare opportunity for me to just be a guest in the audience and just sit there and enjoy the program, not have to host the thing. And I was walking by Bar Trove, which is Lauren Kyle McDavid's new place. It's opening up, by the way, today. Mm-hmm. Officially opening up today. Her new kind of like, it's like a bougie kind of a cocktail lounge bar married with her design studio.
Yeah.
And as I was walking out, I'm walking past, and then boom, she walks out with Leonard with their Bernadoodle and a couple of her girlfriends. And she goes, Ryan, because I'm like all tucked up, right? Like ready to go. And I'm talking to her a little bit about her bar, and she's obviously very excited about this. And I'm like 3 minutes into talking to her, and I go, we haven't even mentioned the Stanley Cup Final.
Don't do it.
Like, I didn't want to say anything. I'm like, your husband, the best hockey player on planet Earth, is right now like fighting for his like the thing that he has coveted since he was 3.
But also, I feel like everybody talks to her about that. So if you have a conversation with her about something else, now that's a real conversation. I did an event for her at Aloe, and she was like, Johnny, and we talked about all these other things, and I had the same thing. There was literally a game that night, and I'm like, I'm not going to bring it up. Don't bring it up,
because
it's
like her whole world, or a big part of her world, obviously, is hockey.
But she's
she's got her own thing,
dude.
man.
She's an amazing person on her own, an amazing creator, amazing social media content creator. She's a designer. She's open. She's an entrepreneur, and I'll give a little taste. I know we don't want to give too much, but myself and you will be doing a pretty awesome event there in the fall. So
Are we? I think we are not allowed to announce it yet.
We will not say it yet,
we will.
A charity event. Yeah. Myself DJing, Ryan hosting.
It's gonna be the hottest
at Bar Trove.
Hottest ticket in town.
Thank you, Lauren, for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. This is I love this in the chat. By the way, Tommy says that last Oilers game was absolutely phenomenal. The overtime goal.
Phenomenal. If you want a heart attack, right?
But I honestly. I remember I've told you guys before, I was lucky enough, road trip of my life, Vancouver 2010. Buddies and I went out there, had tickets to the gold medal game, went. And you remember when Zach Parise scored to tie the game with like a minute left or whatever it was to force overtime. And we felt sick. Like I wanted to puke. Like it wasn't supposed to go that way. Like Canada's got to win the gold medal here. But at the end of the day, looking back on it, Iggy to Crosby, the golden goal, overtime. I know it's hard when you're in the moment, but overtime just makes it that much better. And so I want to tell you this. We don't usually talk about money. It's tacky to talk about money, but I just have to say I have to share something because I told you about this last night. The universe, the hockey gods were talking to me last night. Yeah. And when the Oilers were down 3-0, it was 3-0 at the end of the first period. And it was not all Stuart Skinner's fault, but you knew he was a little shell-shocked, and you knew that the fans were having a confidence problem. You have an incredible perch at the Moss Pit. You've got like your finger on the pulse of thousands of Oilers fans. And the universe called to me, and the universe said, put $100 on the Edmonton Oilers. And so I went to my laptop, and I put $100 on the Edmonton Oilers to win at plus 950. Okay, to return me $1,050, and I made that bet. Now, here's where it gets interesting. 3-1, you go, okay. We just needed to get one past Bobrovsky, right? 3-2. Now, at the 3-2 goal, everybody knew it was going to be 3-3. And the hockey gods were remaining in my ear, and they were talking to me. And then all of a sudden, my buddy says, you should go check out the cash-out option on your bet, right? Because these betting sites want you to cash. If there's a chance that you're going to win your bet, they'll give you a chance before the game's through to cash out for a fraction or for a portion of what you'd make if you win. And I look, and the cash-out is $500. Okay, it's a tie game, 3-3, and then we have a decision to make. And my buddy says to me, my buddy Adrian, he's very practical. He's an architect, and so he's very practical in the way that his mind works. And he says to me, now the benefit of cashing out, he says, you cash out, you've turned 100 into 500, and your team wins. That's a win-win. He says you cash out and they lose, you still have $500, so you can balance your emotions, right? Yes, your team lost, but you've got the $500. And then I look over, my cousin Graham, the dairy farmer who was on the show yesterday. He was with us in studio last night.
Yeah, I love Graham. Saw him last night.
He looks at me, and Graham looks at me, and he says, never cash out.
No.
And I said, Graham, the hockey gods told me to make the bet. I am sticking with them. And so, Tommy, you better believe when it went to overtime, I was starting to think, well, now is when things get hairy. But I'll tell you, when Leon put that in, the room erupted. Oh, dude. Unbelievable.
For guys like us, never cash out, but I could see if you're up in, if it's like cash out $45,000 or something. But I have the same story, but in reverse, sad face, because you texted me and I was like, yeah, we got to look at the odds. Like, not that we're big gamblers, but when we see an opportunity, we tell each other. And I go on the app that we normally use, and I see, oh my God, if I bet 100, I win 1,000. If I bet 400, I win $4,000. So I'm going to put 5, and I'm typing in my credit card. And DJ Alizé, the guy who is my partner in the Moss Pit, says, throw 300 for me too. So now we're in for 800. I put it on my tab. He owes me 3. We're looking at like $8,000 to win here if the Oilers win. 3-0. I'm typing in the credit card. Boom, they score.
Odds change.
Odds immediately cut in half. Immediately. I'm like, okay, got to go rethink my bet. I'm rethinking my bet. I'm tabulating. We're talking. A few minutes go by. Boom, another goal. I'm like, this is the world telling me not to bet. But it should have bet. But what the world was really telling me is put a little cash in your wallet on the app so you can do it faster next time. But I'm happy for you that you won the bet. I'm happy that a lot of people... And
I don't bet a lot.
No, and a lot of people were texting me last night saying... after the first goal, they made a bet, 3-1. Because, man, you do not want to be down 3-1 in the playoffs to the Oilers, because they come back and win that sucker, whether it's in overtime or regulation, every time. Every time.
Ken K says Pickard was on fire last night. Can we all agree it's Pickard's net moving forward? Can we all agree?
I mean, I would like to think that.
He's now 7-0.
Yeah, I don't know as Chris Knobloch, as the coach, I'm not inside his head. But for me, man,
Pickard's got to
there's
start.
only 2 wins left, 3 games total. If we're going to 7, maybe you think about playing them both if Pickard's having a bad first and second period. But for me, man, Pickard doesn't lose in the playoffs.
You got to put Pickard in.
You got to keep him going.
It's Pickard's net. I see some of you here asking me, well, what are the hockey gods telling me about the rest of the series? I'll tell you what they're telling me. The hockey gods are telling me, and I called Oilers in 6. The hockey gods are telling me that the Oilers are going to win Game 5 at home. That's a fact. Now, they have a chance to go on the road and hoist Game 6 in Florida. Which, I would say take the cup if you can get the cup. But wouldn't it be phenomenal? Again, along the same lines of nobody wants the heart attack, but wouldn't it be phenomenal if this thing went 7 games and the Oilers could win it on home ice? I think that would be phenomenal, though I would love for them not to lose anymore in the series. Wouldn't that be great? Vamp Fashions, I don't know if I'll take your word for it, Vamp. I've not seen this before. It says the Oilers are the first road team to come back from 3 goals down in the first since Montreal did it in 1919.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, they're breaking
says
records.
it's only happened 5 other times. All of them were home teams. That's unbelievable. Wow. Others of you are saying, like, this is hilarious from Jillian, who says, I'm not a huge Oilers fan, partly because I feel like they always do things the hard way. She says there's got to be a lot of Edmontonians on heart meds right now. I mean, nothing's been easy.
But we talked about this. There's no better way to win. There's no better way to get glory. There's no better thing in life than the climb up the mountain. If it's easy, if it comes a little, like I said last year, not that last year was easy for Florida, but I felt like that last game was a little,
Yeah.
Like, man, you want that Game 7 overtime golden goal. That's when the win feels the best. And I understand the road there is the most stressful, the most anxiety-ridden thing, but the payoff, as they say in gambling as well, is just so much more when it's at the last second, when it's dire straits, when it's down to the wire.
And also, never gamble anything you can't afford to lose.
This message brought to you by the Alberta Gaming.
Scarlett says, and I agree with her, says that game was not on Skinner at all. Says the rest of the team just didn't show up in the first. Skinner has to take it on the chin. She says that's horrible. And I did notice some other people in the chat. You and I actually mentioned we wanted to bring this up yesterday. It kind of slipped our mind. This story about the Skinner family.
Oh, it's disgusting.
Skinner's wife says that they've been receiving death threats from like maniacal Oilers fans.
Their kids on DMs
I don't even know what you say about this except for what the hell. I just can't think. But you look at what it's like to play. I mean, number one, inexcusable behavior. Period. Like that's it. But also, you look at what it's like to play in relatively smaller markets, or this is not relatively. This is a small market. It's a city of 1 million people. Punches outside its weight class. It's one of the Edmonton Oilers is one of the top revenue-earning teams in the league, which says a huge amount about its fans. But I will say, like, there's a benefit to playing in a Canadian market and playing for Canadian teams if you're into being the cat's ass, if you're into having the key of the city, if you're into being a hero, if you're into being recognized everywhere you go, if you're interested in hardcore fans sticking with you. But at the same time, there's a lot of trade-offs, and there are some cons. And one of the cons is that, if you're living in Florida, like if Sergei Bobrovsky has a bad game and goes and walks around like Sunrise, Florida, like very few people are going to know who he is.
Oh, yeah.
And even fewer people are going to chirp him, and even fewer are going to be sending his family death threats, right? And I just think it doesn't matter to me. I know this seems obvious. Maybe we say some obvious things here from time to time. But, like, if your instinct when your hockey team loses a game is to threaten the lives of the players' families, you might need to take a timeout and reevaluate your whole methodology.
Reevaluate your life. It's a fucking game at the end of it. And I always say, like, let's be passionate. Hockey, how can you not be romantic about it? At the same time, the Oilers lose in this final. The next day, you're going to work. Your life hasn't changed much. Unless you work for the organization, life is going to be pretty much the same for you. So these people who get on this whole, and again, we were just talking about gambling. I tend to think that some of them are gamblers, maybe people who have bet on the Oilers, because in my mind, I don't know who would threaten a child and a mother.
That's insane.
Over a fucking game, right?
Yeah. Ken Kay says he did the same thing I did in game 1 of the LA series, said they were down 4-0, 20-1 odds. Ken says they came back, tied it at 4-4. He says I should have cashed out, but I let it.
Those odds get you, because even last night you could have bet like $5 and win 40 or $10 and win, whatever.
Sure.
And it's just like, I got $5. And that's where gambling is fun, but it can get tricky when you start digging in the wallet.
And I will divulge this. A friend of ours gave us, it was a $50 free bet. This is how they hook you, these sites, right? They give you they offer you like a $50 free bet.
Oh, yeah.
So I took it, and then I don't remember if I shared it on the show. Some of the stuff I don't share really because I don't want to send the wrong message. But you remember when the Winnipeg Jets went down against the St. Louis Blues, and then they had that remarkable comeback, that Cole Perfetti goal. Ultimately, obviously, they lost the series. But I was feeling it, and I had this $50 free bet burning a hole in my pocket, and I bet on them at 8-1, and then Winnipeg came back and won it.
Yeah.
And that 50 basically turned into like 350, 400.
You're on a bit of a streak here.
So now I'm just playing with house money.
I know, but you're on a bit of a...
Now I have like 1,500 in house money, so I'm thinking, what am I going to bet on now?
You're on a bit of like...
Someone's like, why don't you just go pay off your credit card?
There's a lot of things behind the scenes that what we're talking about now and other things people don't know. I'm like, Ryan's he's on a bit of a hot streak right now. He's on a bit of a hot streak.
The number one thing about hot streaks, Don't call them hot
Oh,
streaks.
the pendulum's got to swing.
And don't talk about them.
And the hotter the streak is, the harder that swing comes back. Right?
Oh,
So
that is so
be
true.
careful, buddy.
That is so true. Some of you were, I see Vamp talking about the discrepancies in the calls last night. I know that was, but I would just say this. Kelly Rudy, who's one of just the all-time beauties, had a great take last night. He just basically said, like, and it sounds, this is the stuff you say to kids in like U11, U13, like young players. It's like, you cannot control the reffing. And so if you're going to obsess over the reffing, blame the reffing, complain about the reffing, Rudy basically says, focus on what you can control. That's your effort. That's, sticking to your systems, supporting your teammates. And they did an unbelievable job. That goal, by the way, by Darnell Nurse. I'm a big Nurse guy. Unbelievable.
Even his face was like, did I just
score that goal?
Like, Urkel, did I do that? But hey, I think it's in the eye of the beholder. It's perspective. I've been watching back, trying to be like, nonpartisan here, like, and looking at it. And, I won't say that the reffing is one-sided, but they are missing a lot on both sides. I saw a high stick on Marchand like 2 games ago where I was like, how the fuck do you not call that? And I'm an Oilers fan, and there's stuff missing on the Oilers side too. But I think when you're an Oilers fan, you tend to watch our players and where they're getting hit a little more. But in general, and this is not on refs, I think they're doing a great job, and especially in this series. Ryan, can you imagine trying to keep track? Like, people are hitting, everyone's finishing their checks.
Been a gong show.
Hands are coming up, sticks are slashing. Okay, I didn't call that cross check. I don't call the next one. Like, you have to do plus and minus in your head. And if you called everything, this series would be so slow, right? So it's hard.
I like this from JJ. Says, bet on yourself, Jespo. Bet on yourself. We believe in you. Thank you. Well, I guess we did 4.5 years ago, and here you are, and that just means the world to us. Absolutely love it. We love you guys, and obviously we're going to know. I mean, Saturday night, we're going to see where the series goes. Someone's going to go up 3-2, which is absolutely incredible, and what an exciting time. What a time to be alive. Hey, listen, if you're right now heading into this weekend kind of wondering what your employment future is going to look like, you're underemployed, you're unemployed, or you're unhappily employed, our friends at Kuby Renewable Energy would love to talk to you. If you check out their website, kuby.ca, that's KUBY.ca, click on the Solar by Kuby link, and that's where you can find their career listings. And regardless of where you're listening to us, if you're in BC or Alberta, or you can see yourself living in BC or Alberta, they've got job openings right now. Edmonton, Lethbridge, Kelowna, Kamloops, Calgary, you name it. They're looking for journey persons, electrical engineers, solar PV experts, apprentices. I mean, a ton of opportunities, direct solar sales experts to get involved, to basically become a part of Canada's fastest growing solar installer. Kuby is doing remarkable work in the green energy space. By the way, you can also get a free quote if you're looking to install solar on your roof. My buddy Adrian just did it. He's working with Kuby, wrapping up their big reno on their beautiful bungalow. Congratulations to your family, Adrian. Again, that's kuby.ca. And we want to make sure that you have our friends at UCAN Youth Services front of mind the next time that your family is maybe looking at making a donation, a charitable donation. Maybe you get your tax return back, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's estate planning, and you want to make sure that some of your legacy is going to translate into transformative work. That's what UCAN is doing. Check out their website, ucan.ca, to learn more about their values, their partnerships, their teams. At UCAN, all young people feel valued. They can recognize their potential, embrace opportunities, and experience success. Real Talk is a proud partner of UCAN Youth Services. Ken says we always got to remember the NHL is an entertainment business. He says, I have no doubt that the refs are told to try to have the penalty count equal by the end of the game, if possible. There is a bit of a gray area there, right? You always sort of expect that makeup call coming at some point, right?
Yeah, but I'm sure they're trained to, like, once you get that iterated, like, once you start thinking like that, then you think that, I just called this way, I got to go the other way. You don't want to get on that train of thought, right?
100%.
The officials are supposed to call the plays by the rule book, but definitely in the playoffs, they're letting the boys play, right?
Yeah.
But don't think for a second that they're not sitting down on these 2 days off in between, or 1 day off in between, with league officials, with the head of the players. What's his name? What's the guy everyone hates who calls all the fines and everything?
I'm not Colin Campbell.
These guys are on a Zoom. What I'm saying, in between the games, talking about, hey, what did we get right? What did we get wrong? What do we need to do more of? But they're not necessarily like, we need to zero in on this player, or we need to even things out. But they're trying their best. I'm saying, like, If you want to get AI calling the game, there's going to be a whistle every 20 seconds.
Do you mean George Peros? Is that
Yes,
the guy?
George Peros.
But,
That's
I
what I
mean,
was talking about.
the fascinating thing about Peros is, like, in his day, he's an interesting character. He went to some Ivy League school, Princeton maybe, I don't know. But then he was like one of the biggest goons in the league for years. He'd fight in. He was a towering behemoth.
But I wanted
now he's in charge of player safety. Kind of an interesting journey for George Peros.
Yeah, and people don't like that. I'm like, who else would you want in there? He knows what people are doing. That's why I think, and people are always gonna, when a player gets fined, if it's on your team or suspended, you're going to disagree with it. And then you'll go and comment on a Leafs player who got suspended and say, he should be out of the league. He's trying to kill people. Man, I want a goon in there because a goon knows what you're doing, whether it was intentional or whether you've trained yourself to make it look unintentional. I tend to think they generally, for the most part, and people are going to take my head off, get it right.
Shout out to Ms. Katie and Ken K. $10 kick-ins on our super chat. We appreciate it. Ken says, great show today. Let's go Oilers. Ms. Katie says, I love the show today. Great guests. I hope everybody has a great weekend. We love that. I do see some, who was it? Marie, someone here said, why no mention of the town hall? Yeah, interesting. Obviously, guys, we try to stay on top of all the stories. We stay on top of them. The show's not 6 hours long. But you heard that Premier Danielle Smith earlier this week, a short time ago, I think it was like yesterday or the day before, Southern Alberta town hall at Fort McLeod.
Yeah.
Fort McLeod, if you had to say, how does Fort McLeod typically vote? I would guess it's not, well, they don't
Not
vote.
orange.
They don't swing hard left. Let's put it that way. But an absolute earful for the Premier and 3 cabinet ministers at this hours-long town hall talking about the province's coal policy. And that's one of the things, and I think it's been obvious on this show, and we've been talking about this for years, like literally since Real Talk launched. And we've had dozens of different voices on talking about coal. You know, we had like Robin Campbell on, the former environment minister in Alberta, who's now a lobbyist for coal. He's been on. Obviously, we've had Corb Lund on. We've had the citizen activists, the grassroots organizers. And the one thing that I think is very plainly seen is that this is not a partisan issue. People, regardless of how they vote, are pissed about what's happening with coal mining in the province right now on the eastern slopes. And so basically, as the Premier's being heckled and basically verbally lambasted at this town hall, she says if we're not prepared to look and find middle ground solutions to allow for industries to proceed while reducing our environmental footprint, she says you're going to find that different industries become next on the hit list. Banning industries is just not something we're going to do. I would suggest to Alberta's Premier, if she doesn't start listening to Albertans across the political spectrum, how they feel about this industry in particular, your threats around harming or limiting other industries will fall flat, and your time in government will be limited. And there have been premiers in past that have failed to heed where Albertans are at, where the grassroots are at, and when you're losing lefties and right-wingers at the same time, you might want to give your head a shake on this. Albertans do not want coal mining on the eastern slopes.
Well, I was just going to ask you what your thoughts are, but I think we all know, and I get it. The people in that community should decide. But man, that water flowing, those environmental impacts all around, like why risk? Let's just talk about employment. Like, why risk 40,000 jobs in the environment and everything around there to make 200 or 300? It makes no sense.
Now if you live in that part of, like, if you live in, Crow's Nest Pass, if you're in that area, there's a chance that, like, you work as a coal miner. Your daddy was a coal miner. Your granddaddy was a coal miner. And I'm not making fun of that. I'm just saying that, like, obviously, if it's your industry that people are talking about, you will have a very strong opinion.
Sure.
Because your family's future is tied to it. Your employment future, at least in your perception, your employment future is tied to that, so you're going to protest. But we're not talking about like 200 people who want to see it. We're talking about a province of nearly 5 million people who are looking at this saying the royalties on coal are brutal. It really makes no sense. Basically, almost all of the profit is going offshore to one of the richest people on planet Earth, an Australian billionaire who really has no vested interest or emotional connection or otherwise to Alberta's eastern slopes or to Canada's parks. And it's something that Canadians, and in particular Albertans, have spoken loud and clear about. Like M. Aitken in our chat says there were a lot of conservatives there in that room. Says the large portion of the crowd was conservatives, and they are not happy with how things are going. Well, no shit. If you're a farmer, if you're a rancher, if you're an ag producer, and that's not even that. I mean, if you just care about our watershed, if you care about our environment, and if you care about investing in, and when we're talking about government subsidies and friendly deals, and don't buy the bullshit that the government's feeding you about, oh, these companies are going to take us to court and we're going to lose. The Alberta government has been willing to go to court with fucking anybody for years over just about anything. And now we've found that the Australian coal company is the one that we can't beat. Like, we can beat the federal government, but we can't beat the Australian coal company. Give me a break. So that's my thoughts on it. Some of you are saying that Corb Lund has a good post on his Facebook about this. Let's see. I'm reading this cold right now. Corb on his Facebook says, I attended the Alberta government's the coal town hall in Fort McLeod. He wrote this a day ago, says it was last night. So he says, one of the main messages I heard from the Premier, Ministers Rebecca Schultz, Brian Jean, is how much they're relying on the coal committee findings. He says, I'm familiar with the findings, and I strongly disagree that they're following the community's recommendations. Corb says, months ago, myself, Katie Morrison from CPAWS, Katie's been on the show before, and most notably, he says, Bill Trafford from the government's own coal committee specifically challenged these government reps to a long-form, moderated, publicly broadcasted debate on the coal issue, as if they would sign up to that. He says, we got no response. Yeah, no shit. Corb says, as somebody who's been heavily involved in this fight for more than 5 years, I've spent hundreds of hours speaking at length with dozens of people on both sides of the issue. He says, I've come to a comprehensive understanding of this issue, and many of the things that the Premier and ministers were saying at this town hall were untrue, misleading, and plainly dishonest. He says the format of the town hall did not allow for follow-up questions, so the politicians could make untrue statements that were not challenged. He says we would like to reiterate our challenge to the Premier and to the ministers, a public debate on coal at their earliest convenience. He says if you'd like to see this happen, share this post. He says we're being sold down the river. This is Corb Lund, country music star and beloved Albertan. We're being sold down the river to foreign interests by our elected representatives, and it's happening quickly, says Corb Lund, so speak up.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like we might have to do another episode on coal next week.
I love the beauty of Alberta, and I love its natural resources too. But like, this just seems silly to me. The payoff is not worth if something goes wrong, right? It's not worth it.
Now, I'm going to ask you.
And something will go wrong. Selenium, one word. Like,
it's already happening.
It's already happening.
It's already happening.
It's going to happen more, and people are going to get poisoned, and water's going to be worse shit. And
you got to think, you got to think of what happens, like when tried, tested, and true. And I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody here, but I'm just like stating the obvious. When people that vote conservative time after time after time, this is the joke people make on the show all the time. You could run a brown bag, paint it blue in Alberta, and it would win in a riding, right? These are people that are diehard conservatives. These are not people that are cheering for Naheed Nenshi. They have no political interest here, but these are also people that understand business. They understand the environment because part of the environment factors into their business in a big way. Their family's sustainability, the livability of the conditions around them, the health of not just their cattle and their livestock, but people. It's not just Albertans, right? These watersheds these rivers are flowing across the country. The people in Saskatchewan should care deeply about this, and I bet you many of them do as well. So, 80s Fanify says, we need more of this, Ryan. Yeah, guys, look, I'm sweating through my shirt right now. I can barely handle it. I'm going to need the heart meds between this and the Stanley Cup Final. Are you kidding me? It's a good thing I have an outlet right now, friends, because as we wrap up every week here on Real Talk, our friends at the DQs, oh yeah, baby, get the studio band ready, Johnny, at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, give us an opportunity to amplify our hottest takes. Yeah, that's right. These are all real emails and YouTube comments from Real Talkers. It's the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Okay, I'm showing this to you on my screen. This was our June 3rd episode with Laura Winton and Jim Turk, and we were talking about Alberta's attack on library books, right? So Interested Meow writes in and says, oh, okay, so you guys want more regulation and rules around resource extraction, but less regulation and rules around what our children are being exposed to. Your line of reasoning would have my children have access to pot and alcohol, forced to consume them by trusted adults. Calling safety and age-appropriate exposure censorship is so over the top, I can't tell if you're serious or not, Jespersen. Oh, and professionals in the space? Since when are school librarians a part of a professional association? That from Interested Meow, not a fan of libraries. Hey, how about this one? You remember our episode when we had the education minister on, Dimitrios Nikolaitis, a couple of days later? Because that's how Real Talk rolls. We hear both sides of the story, and then we decide, make our own opinion. opinions based on actual information? Well, Lynne writes in and says, what a stupid comment that I heard on Real Talk, that if you don't have kids, you have no say on what books are appropriate. That's like saying I shouldn't have been a teacher because I can't have kids. Lynne says, I was an elementary teacher for 32 years, by the way. Lynne, thank you for your service. How about this one from Karen, who says, Dimitrios Nicolaitis, the education minister, bragging about the assessments from K to grade 3 kids without mentioning that it's pulling teachers out of class to do the assessments. They didn't provide extra staffing to do this. And how much of that extra funding and infrastructure is going to private and charter schools, not to public education? That from Karen. How about this one? Remember our June 4th episode. You remember this one with labor lawyer Dwayne Choman, who was giving us insight into the Canada Post strike? Alberta Gengar says, I could not imagine gleefully talking about pushing workers to bend who are trying to get a better deal, crushing union certifications, stringing striking workers out for as long as possible. Workplaces get the unions they deserve, and guys like Dwayne make me sick. That from Alberta Gengar. What about this one from Andre, who says, hey, it may not be important to those of you in Alberta, but there's been support in Eastern Canada for a pipeline long before anybody started talking about separation. Many of the people we know are in this camp. However, says Andre, as usual, it's those who speak the loudest and with the greatest passion that get all the attention. We were never asked. The question seemed best avoided by those who lead us. That from Andre in Eastern Canada. And what about this one from Jeff, who says, Jespo, here's one for the Flamethrower. The Premier Danielle Smith said one reason for record high youth unemployment is young people aren't getting driver's licenses when they're 16 anymore. She mentioned getting her own license when she was 16. Even young people with licenses must be finding it difficult to afford their own vehicle, partly because of auto insurance rates, which have only been increasing to insane levels. And what's her government been doing about that? Jeff says, I didn't get my license till I was in my 20s, mostly because I grew up in the city and didn't mind taking transit, but more than that because I knew it would be a long time before I could save up enough money to afford a vehicle. That was 20 years ago, says Jeff. I can't imagine what it's like for young people now. That from Jeff. You can fire up your Flamethrower anytime to talk at RyanJespersen.com or leave a comment on one of our YouTube episodes. The Flamethrower is proudly presented by the DQs in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. Oh yeah, and you'll find them on the 10th hole, serving dilly bar shooters at the Real Talk Golf Classic on June 19th. We love you guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you Monday.
Go Oilers!
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jespersen, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out RyanJespersen.com.